On previous videos, we have talked about the importance of stretch capacity with your employees. Today, I'm going to revisit that principle, but also want to share with you something that we have found as we've started talking to leaders, organizations, and employees all across the country. As a refresher, stretch capacity is the ability to be able to stretch so that you can grow. And at different phases and different stages of your life and your employees, you'll find that they are able to stretch at different levels. There are 3 stretch capacity zones. And the optimal zone is the one that has the greatest amount of stretch. When things are going well in their personal lives, when they're going well at the office, they have the ability to stretch, to grow, take on new projects, have areas of advancement and responsibility. And that is key and important. There are other times where they're in burnout and they are not able to stretch very much. They are doing all that they can. They are still responsible for getting their jobs done and doing their work, but they might not be able to take on anything extra. But we need to resist the urge that when people are in those places to take all the stretch away. They still need opportunities to stretch, because when we stretch, we grow, even in burnout and even in the rest and recovery zones. But one of the principles that we're finding is, I asked a question on LinkedIn about what they loved most about how their bosses stretch them. And I saw story after story after story of people who left jobs and responsibilities because they didn't feel like they were stretched. They didn't feel like they were able to use their talents, gifts, and skills. They felt like they were silenced in some places. They also felt like they weren't given an opportunity to try something new or to innovate. And one particular story has stood out to me. I had an opportunity to do some work with an organization where I came in to do a bunch of trainings for their external sales force and also for their internal leadership team. And through the course of those conversations, I also had the opportunity to do some coaching for their C-suite and those top level leaders. And it was interesting to really hear about how their dynamics were working as a team, but also how they interacted with the CEO. And I found that every single person on the leadership team was being stretched in appropriate ways, except for one. And in my conversations with her, it was really interesting because she would say, I'm actually quite bored. And I'm not bored because I'm not doing anything. She was incredibly busy, but she was bored because she was continually trying to put together ideas, proposals, and plans that would stretch her, stretch the company. But whenever she met with the CEO about it, he always said, no, we're not doing that. Or no, you don't need to worry about that. No, just worry about this over here. And what she shared with me was that she didn't feel like she was using her talents and gifts to help the company. And she didn't feel like she was given opportunities to stretch and grow. And she was remaining stagnant in her professional life. And I found this so fascinating. It was almost like, if you think about the resistance bands that we talk about when we're using stretch capacity, it's almost like hers were cut. Like there wasn't even an opportunity for her to stretch. She wasn't given the ability to be able to find ways for her to stretch and grow. And as a result, she ultimately left the company in the end. Now, there were probably some team dynamics that could be addressed. Maybe there was a chemistry between the CEO and this particular leader that made it tricky for him to trust her. There could have been a number of different reasons. And while I could never really get to the bottom of it, her story, she's not alone. There were a number of people who responded to my LinkedIn question about times when they didn't feel stretched and didn't feel like they were utilizing their talents and skills were not being utilized within the organization. And so as you think about how you stretch your employees, I want you to think about how you're giving them opportunities to innovate, how you're giving them opportunities to grow, how you're giving them opportunities to think outside the box, because that actually is really critical. It also is a reminder that individuals continue to need at every level of the organization opportunities to grow within the company. And when they hit that ceiling and they feel like they can't grow anymore, they might feel stifled. And if they don't feel like they can find that type of growth within the organization, they will go and look for it somewhere else. I have a dear friend who's worked for a number of different companies, and he worked for the same organization for many years. He loved their mission. He loved what they were doing. He loved the opportunity to be part of something great. But for him personally, there were no growth and advancement opportunities for him. There was nothing else he could do. And he said to me, he's like, Michelle, I feel like I'm still young and I've got another run in me. I've got another run for leadership opportunities. I've got another run for the C-suite. And he was willing to go to another organization, take a job as a director, and work his way up to a VP so that he could have that opportunity to learn and grow, because that was so important to him. And so he left a job that he loved, a mission he was passionate about, people that he enjoyed working with, all because he wanted that advancement and that growth opportunity. The opposite of burnout is not boredom. The opposite of burnout is feeling underutilized and unfulfilled. And so as you think about each of your employees and consider their different stretch capacities, you might have places where you don't feel comfortable with them stretching. Maybe there are aspects of the work that do need to stay consistent, but be mindful that every single employee that is in your organization, whether they are direct reports to you or whether they are direct reports to someone else, every employee wants to stretch. They might not use those words, but they want to advance. They want to grow. They want to feel like they're continuing to learn. They want to feel like they're continuing to provide value. And so as an organization, what can you do to help every single employee, every level of your company, find those safe stretch areas that bring innovation to the organization, that bring new life to the organization, and if nothing else, bring new life to your employees? Stretching is good. Great leaders know how to stretch their teams before they snap, and great leaders know how to stretch their teams so they can grow. I am cheering you on as you consider the stretch capacity of each of your employees and also your own. What is it that you're doing to stretch so that you can grow, develop, and become stronger in your personal and professional life? Thank you for watching, and stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you can see our next video.